Hi everyone. I want to thank you for attending our webinar. Today we're going to have a Q&A session based upon some frequently asked questions that our executives get asked in the cannabis industry. Today with us we have Emmanuel Infantante, also known as EJ, and Jacob Johnson. Both of them are part of the Cannabis Network over at Rante, and we're happy to have them there today with us. My name is Tim. I will be your moderator. I'll be proposing these questions to them regarding the type of, work that they do, how they see the industry going, and everything else in between. So I'll first like to introduce EJ.
Thank you, Tim. Hi, everybody. Thank you again for coming to this webinar. We can't wait to answer all your questions that you've submitted to us prior. And I'm one of the VP for the Rante Corporation's Cannabis Partner Network, along with Mr. Jake Johnson. Part of what I do includes interacting with clients in and out of the partner network, making sure that everyone has what they need in order to meet their business goals, whatever that may be. And we make it a priority to listen to individuals and businesses in the cannabis community, and we figure out the ways that we can help them stay compliant and meet their goals in whatever project that they may be working on. And another thing I do is I oversee the content on our video and blog platforms. We review content submitted from people in and out of the partner network, from the community members and cannabis experts alike, helping them showcase their thoughts and their ideas on a broader platform. And I hand it back over to Tim to introduce Mr. Jake Johnson.
Great. Thank you so much for that introduction. Jake, I would like to have you tell a little bit about yourself and go from there.
Hello, thank you, Tim, for that introduction. Like they said, I'm Mr. Jake Johnson. I'm also one of the vice presidents of the Rant Cannabis Partner Network. Some of my lead roles are handling webinars such as this one and events, along with make it the people and what they have to say and their problems. Also, I help monitor the blog platforms and everything that we have going on with that. And I help launch any new
Great. No, it looks like we have a little connection issue with Jake, and that's fine. No worries from there, but I want to thank the two speakers for attending. Today we're going to focus on, some of the issues that we see and their perspectives on it. And I'm going to leave it up of who wants to take over first when it comes to, answering these questions. So the first real question that was proposed by individuals was, what challenges do you see in the cannabis industry?
Well, I guess I'll pick it up first. I guess the first thing is just compliance in itself. I mean, from what I can hear and so until they overcome that challenge and a few other little minute challenges such as trust issues and other things within the industry, it won't be able to grow.
And do you see trust being an issue when dealing with contractors?
I mean, trust is really an issue within any industry you go into, with any deal you make. You have to have a certain level of trust with the partner you're making the deal with. And a lot of the back and forth but in amongst this industry, I think, is really hurting any kind of bond or connection these companies can make, rather than helping.
And we hear that some of our partners and some of our are those individuals in our network as well as other participants, they like face-to-face meetings. Do you think that's true? And if so, why?
I mean, face to face is always better because usually with face to face, you normally get somebody that's knowledgeable of what the company is presenting. Also, they'll bring you a presentation normally of what they're presenting, and it makes them feel more like they matter, more as a person and not just a number or a name in amongst their files.
Yeah, I think that there's a sense of trust in bonding that you kind of foster that you don't really get from a phone call or from like a video chat. There's just you get to really know who you're dealing with, what kind of person you're going to be doing business with, in a face to face situation.
Okay, great. Um, Knowing that some of our attendees are in different states, we saw one issue that happened in California on July 1st, where there was a large exit and consolidation of commercial cannabis participants. Why do you think that was the case?
Well, there was the new law that California had passed, and they made sure that businesses in California who were licensed, they had a notification that this was going to be happening 6 months prior to July 1st. And what that was is that it required all cannabis that was going to be sold to have a record of the product's potency, where it's coming from, what its history had been from growth to retail. And because of a lack of compliance with the ruling, uh, the businesses that weren't prepared were either forced to, send their product back to be checked and to be tested, which isn't really the most economic decision. Um, so businesses were kind of just forced to rush everything off their shelves before that date in order to, not get in trouble with the law and at the same time still make some type of profit. One of the complaints about that though is that it kind of led to like a shortage is in you're missing cannabis that's usually on the shelves, and then for you to kind of have to, as a business decision maker, you have to find uh, compliant sources that get you the product that make sure that you meet all those standards when it comes to having those records, and just having to scramble through that, even though had you were notified of it too. That's just one of the things about that just stresses the importance of compliance right there.
Okay, interesting. And do you think either one of you that compliance played a major role, or do you think it was lack of
Oh,
the
definitely a lack
buyers?
thereof.
I
Definitely a lack
agree.
thereof.
Yes, very much so. A very, very major lacking of compliance and just general cooperation.
Great. We see that from the government, especially the California Cannabis Control Board, focusing more on, enforcements of those actions, and they seem to be really stepping up their games from what we're, being told, as well as, probably in other states. Now, when we think of compliance, we think of, adhering to different laws and regulations that are out there. But what is cannabis compliance and why is it important?
I mean, it's definitely gonna make or break your business. It's just something that um, and that's every business is just gonna have to adhere to. Obviously, it's following the rules and regulations to avoid your business being hindered in any way, especially how it operates and how you make your profit. And basically following the different laws, especially based on where you're located, especially in this industry specifically, that's a big factor in what what methods you have to follow in order to stay out of hot water. Whether you're in distribution, growing, retail, um, things can really change, over like in a matter of a day on how you might have to carry your business based on, the lawmakers that kind of have you in a vice grip. It's high risk, high reward.
Okay, great. And
Yeah.
maybe Jake might take this one in terms of what do you hear from people when they reach out? Is it mostly, oh, I want a network, or are you guys doing some type of compliance work? Like, what seems to be that issue that people are talking about?
Well, a lot of times when they reach out to me, they're needing compliance. They're more worried and concerned with what the federal government's going to do, but they don't really know who to believe or where to look to for the information, because a lot of the times when you ask somebody, nobody really knows. So I think when they reach out to compliance companies like us, they're just needing somebody to help them out with that ordeal. Um, I kind of have faith in them to run the business like normal, but with this high industry and highly regulated industry, they just need the extra backup so they can run their business like normal and not worry.
Okay, great. Yeah, that seems to be a growing trend from there. And from what we often hear from prospective clients and so on is everybody's trying to sell me something. I'm in the cannabis world. Everybody wants to sell me something because they want to take my money because I'm making a lot of it or I'm in a growth industry, whatever that may be. Do you hear that? And if so, why? And if so, why not? Is that a general concern?
I do occasionally hear that people just want nothing but to sell you stuff and all that. And I think it's got a lot to do with the mainstream media and how it's labeled this just to be $1 billion industry. It's an easy industry. Once you get in, a few months in, you're going to be making all kind of money when honestly this is a very new industry in which it's going to be one of the harder industries to make any real profit in. So, I mean, that's that's where it is, and people feel like, well, I can just call these companies and they got the money, they can buy anything. Well, where in turn is they're just lucky to hit their next rent and all that, because with all the compliance and all that, they ain't able to do the business like they would.
Okay, great. And I don't know if EJ can shed any light on it. What do you recommend for businesses that think they're just getting approached so they can buy something from somebody else? Is it necessary to have compliance and legal, to take those additional steps?
I mean, definitely. You want to like as businesses come up to you, and then as you may want to go up to businesses offering a product, making sure that you sell yours, and then they theirs get bought. Like it's kind of like a trade-off there when it comes to networking with these businesses, and obviously you want to make sure that whoever you're dealing with, stays within the limits of the law, stays compliant. And it's definitely something that you have to check. That's one of the things. It's kind of like if you were to start serving alcohol, it's just an ID that you have to check in order to keep yourself from staying out of trouble, from any liability falling on you. And you just want to make sure that that is covered before you go further with any other business dealings, because that might come and bite you in the butt later on. Let's say that your idea takes off, and then what you did is within the statute of limitations, and then you get imposed with fees, and worst case scenario, it could bring your business to a grinding halt. So make sure to really cover your bases when it comes to compliance, and even with dealing with companies that may or may not be just making a quick buck off of you.
And And that kind of leads into my next question. Why should cannabis businesses take them, like, why should they take compliance seriously? They're making money, they got their license, but what else should be done? Well, why should they treat it seriously?
I
Well,
mean, yeah, go ahead, Jake.
well, I mean, the compliance is just basically it's a guideline and rules that everybody needs to follow that helps the business function correctly. I mean, it helps everybody stay in line and make sure all trades are pretty much fair and equal. And when you have good compliance, you also have a better standing with the federal government because they'll make sure all your documents are correct, or they should. If you have a good compliance company, they will make sure everybody's documents is correct. And if you get audited or checked in any kind of way, you will be all green because everything is set in all order.
So, should compliance really be at the forefront of their mind as they're conducting their business?
It's definitely so. Again, like I keep going back to like the make or break point of what your business can and does, like what it can achieve and what it's currently doing. If you have to take it seriously, or it could lead to the downfall of literal downfall of your business. Like there are horror stories out there from um, how businesses have failed to claim or like renew their license. Think like little petty things like that, little violations, just making sure that your sales are all recorded properly and you have that paperwork to show. Again, when it comes to auditing season, you want to make sure that you have all those things covered, um, or else you might get thrown with a ton of fees, or it might slow your business down for a while. It's just something that needs to happen. It's something that needs to be, constantly. Well, not constantly. I'm sorry. Uh, just something that needs to be there for you in order for your business to stay afloat.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess from what we're hearing, that seems to be a pretty big issue from here on out. Um, Kind of going off of that, we hear all these different fears and questions that they have. What do you think those fears are when it comes to the cannabis business, and what can cannabis businesses do to address those fears?
I mean, I guess the biggest fear that everybody would probably point out first would be the federal government. And just they're unpredictable. One day they might be good with you, and the next day they're going to shut you down and enforce normal law. You never really know what they're going to do or how they're going to do it. And I think that scares a lot of people into questioning whether they should go forth and renew licenses or even do anything like that, because to a lot of them, at the end of the day, you still get shut down whether you're doing it right or not.
Yeah, it's definitely like a deal or no deal type of like situation where if you want to keep playing in the game, you have to make sure that you have to make sure that you're staying compliant, that the government doesn't end up screwing you later on. Uh, Again, there's a lot of potential to make a lot of money out of this industry wherever whatever aspect you might play in it. But at the same time, with the discrepancies between federal law, state law, local law, it's it can get really confusing very easily, and that unpredictability that especially on the federal level that we have right now, um, that could just that's definitely a very valid fear that we've heard from people all across the cannabis community, the cannabis industry, in and out of our partner network.
So, knowing that there might be that fear, what are typically some questions, or what do cannabis organizations want to do? Some basic steps to address, their fears or their compliance. What typically do you hear, and what do you get out of that?
I mean, for those who care enough about staying compliant, and then unfortunately that that number is not that it's not numerous enough. The ones that do, they seek out legal counsel, having a professional review all their business practices, making sure their papers are in track. You know, making sure that they are adhering to the law when it comes to making any bigger business decisions. That might include advertising, collaborating with other businesses, uh, just that like those precautions that they've been taking you know have been keeping them out of hot water, making sure that their business is constantly growing, and at the same time staying compliant. And it's better than having to pay unreasonable fees at the very end of the day.
Okay, so there are basic steps that, businesses can take, such as getting legal counsel or another outside compliance official or somebody else.
Hmm.
And we know that, at least in California, leading up to January 1, everybody's talking about cannabis, cannabis, cannabis. And we know, particularly out west and even with, other parts of the country, even Canada, that cannabis is being talked about. What do you think cannabis organizations are just tired of talking about that, kind of just they don't want to go to events for it, or they just don't want to talk about it anymore?
Compliance. I mean, to be honest, I mean, ever since it's basically launched, it's been compliance, compliance, compliance. So it's compliance whether you follow the rules. It's that's all they hear is that, or the feds are after you. And I'm pretty sure they're tired of hearing all of that every single day.
Yeah, it's definitely up there, like with like kind of like doing your taxes. It's something like a necessary evil almost, and someone has to, make sure that that's being, looked at. Again, I've already told you the precaution, the cautionary tales for it. But it's literally something that you don't really want to talk about it. But at the end of the day, you'd rather be prepared to talk about it, stay knowledgeable about it, and in order to stand your ground and kind of take some satisfaction that you'll win whatever battles that may come your way, whether that be legal, whether that be officials trying to shut you down or anything. Just being ordered to stay prepared for when an issue arises or the next time it comes up. you know
Okay, great. Yeah, I would have to agree with you that it's a necessary evil out there. And the last question um, for this webinar is, what do you think cannabis businesses are doing wrong? And why do you think they're doing it wrong?
I think it's a multitude of different things. A lot of it is, like we've been talking about mainly on this webinar, would be compliance and staying within legal terms. But I think a lot more of it is just lack of cooperation with each other in amongst this industry. It seems like everybody thinks somebody's out to get them for something. Um, I think if they would drop that and come together, we'd stand a better fighting chance of growing and gaining better trust and communes with the federal government and the states, and we wouldn't look as scattered out and unfunctional.
Yeah, the general mistrust is kind of unnecessary at this point, because right now kind of like the hardest enemy that we have to fight right now is, like, in a weird way, is the government being so unpredictable and generally against uh, the progress and growth that we have a lot of potential to have. There are still a number of businesses but there are also a number of small businesses that put compliance on the back burner. Like, again, these violations and oversights, it handicaps businesses pretty badly if it ever comes to light. And some of them have enough hubris to kind of attempt to sweep things under the rug. But that's pretty risky business. That's the first time to use that term. But if businesses would just make sure that they were operating appropriately, making sure that they're licensed appropriately, even check that businesses that they collaborate with are licensed, you've already got most of your bases covered there. And just making sure that you take a proactive role and making sure that all those things are covered. Don't just leave it in the back burner for it to bite you in the ass later.
Okay, great. I want to thank both of you for taking the time today. I know that your schedules are pretty busy with everything. We're going to try to do these on a monthly basis with different topics and discussions with these executives in terms of the cannabis industry. They're also working on a podcast as well too to discuss issues. So we hope that there's involvement from everybody in the industry and don't be shy. Again, thank you for attending. And if you're unable to make it, we'll be sending around the video. And hopefully, if you have any questions, reach us at cannabis@ranty.com in the lower left-hand corner. And we look forward to our next Q&A and discussion with you guys.
Thank you, Tim. Thank
Thank
you,
you, guys.
everybody.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.